Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Terry Dillon. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ClubMap, who have been partnering with Bowls Australia for the last 12 months. Has anyone sat in any of our webinars to date that we've been delivering through? No? Well, you'll learn a lot today. I can guarantee you that. And you'll learn about a lot of knowledge that you can access for the next 12 months, fully funded by Bowls Australia. So my background, for those who don't know, is professional sport, but I'm born and bred in country Victoria. Grew up on community sport. I'm still involved with my community club in country Victoria. So today's topic is all about participation and engaging volunteers. There's no doubt you'll walk away from today with some tips that will change the way you'll run your community club and tapping into some funding and some new initiatives. So Brett and I will be co-presenting today, but it's all about participation and engagement. Just a quick snapshot on who ClubMap is. So anyone who wants to look about us, we work with all different sports. We're the number one educator for the Australian Sports Foundation. Work with a lot of governing bodies. I speak to probably 5 bowls clubs a week. It's part of my role with Bowls Australia, and we run regular webinars, and we've been doing that for 9.5 years now. So we're going to talk about participation and engagement, but there's some key pieces of the puzzle you need to get in place before you can actually execute the initiatives that we talk about today. And particularly that comes back to structure, your board and committee structure, and what that looks like. And we find a lot of our clubs probably don't spend enough time getting their structure sorted. So it's all about, as you see on the slide here, you can't put the roof up on without the walls, and obviously you need solid foundations, and that's what we're going to talk about. So the 3-pronged attack we're going to touch on today is about structure. When I say structure, I'm talking about organisational structure, and it's really hard. We work with all sports, so trust me, there are common denominators through all sports of gaps in community organisations that really need some help, and we're going to give you some tips that you can take away today. Today is actually being recorded, so anyone, if you want to share this with your committee afterwards, you can do so. Second part is, there's one thing to look at the capacity, but it's do we have the resources to execute and grow volunteers? So we're going to talk about some funding for people that are 55 and over, pre-pension, to be paid 30 hours a fortnight to help run your community club. Now, for many of our clubs, if you can get 2 or 3 people that are on this initiative, that can be a game changer for community organisations, but it's one of the best kept secrets going around. We're going to, this is the framework that we're going to touch on today. We're going to talk about the landscape. So it's really what is happening currently in the landscape of bowls around the country in terms of everything we talk about, what we educate on is off your greens. It's off the rinks. We teach you about structure, governance, finance, sponsorship, fundraising, grants, volunteers, membership, capital infrastructure, all those sort of the off-green administration. Then we're going to talk about, okay, how do we grow our participation? There's going to be 1 or 2 gold nuggets. I'll guarantee you most clubs who walk away from today will consider doing this. And then we're going to talk about how that leads into participation, and then we'll open up to the floor for some Q&A at the end. So for those that aren't aware of the partnership with ClubMap, we have 1,500 administrators Australia-wide that are participating in a program with us, all bowls clubs around Australia. Now, some of our bowls clubs, sometimes the people that are on the committees or the volunteers probably don't get to hear that information. So this will, obviously today is about passing on that. So we've got a health check. We'll talk about that as we go through the session, but it's a really important first step to assess your club. You know, this is all about those off-field areas we talked about, and we've had 62 New South Wales participate in it. So here's the stats. So just to be sort of clear on what it means, the green is it's a traffic light system. The green is for any results over 70. Average results are 50 to 70, which is amber, and anything under 50 is red. So you can see the 4 reds that stand out already. Volunteers. So this is the results from 160 clubs around the country. Most of our clubs have got really, okay finances, good governance, but you can see here the volunteers and the sponsorship and the fundraising is a real challenge. And basically, 3 out of 10 clubs of the 164 completed the survey traded a loss last year. So that's a worry, okay? Because we're going to talk about some one new age revenue initiative that will become to your attention. This is the obviously 2.4 out of 10 clubs have a 5-figure fundraiser. A lot of our community clubs do not have like a simple gifting and bequesting program. And it's particularly in golf and some of the other sports, it's very prominent, but often for many people, their bowls club is very much a part of their family. And I don't know if you saw in Victoria last couple of weeks, there was a gentleman who gifted $1 million to a community club. He had a bit of a falling out with his committee and he gave it to the club down the road. So it was, and I think they might have challenged the bequest, didn't they, Brett? But it's just really a simple, again, it's a simple process a lot of our clubs are missing out on, which in terms of, we'll talk about that. The club has 5 out of 10 clubs have a focus on grants. A lot of our community clubs, even if you have gaming as part of your operations, you should be generating a good 5-figure sum per annum from grants. So we'll touch on that. And again, most of our clubs are 7 out of, even though there's some of the trading a loss last year, they've still got a reasonably strong financial position, and their governance and finance is pretty good. We then did a survey comparing New South Wales clubs to the Australian Bowl, all the clubs around Australia, very similar. It's nearly a mirror image. But what I can tell you is that sponsorship in New South Wales is less than the rest of the country. Fundraising, so we've got grants, is less in New South Wales than the rest of the country. So that sort of gives you a bit of a snapshot there. Again, fundraising, this is the 62 bowls clubs. You can just see the reds. They're missing out on their volunteers. They're missing out on sponsorship, fundraising, grants, and BowlsLink is probably underutilised to an extent. So I think everyone, in terms of this is the resources hub. So if everyone's got a pen, I'd encourage you to write down this link. It is bowls.clublink.com.au. This is an amazing resource for volunteers who want to be educated. I emphasise the word want to be educated. But we've run a series of webinars. I don't know how many we've run this year for bowls on a Monday night once a month, maybe a Tuesday. 12 webinars we run, and you can actually go back and watch those online. So on different topics, the Australian Sports Foundation, grants, BowlsLink, a couple of sessions, fundraising, sponsorship. So you can go back through this platform completely free. So if you want to register, go to that bowls.clubmap, access the resources hub. So it is the most incredible resource you could possibly want. There's 120 short little videos with about 200 templates on how to run your club, position descriptions and sponsorship proposals and fundraising initiatives and grant opportunities. I'd really encourage your club, if you haven't done a health check, to log on to bowls.clubmap and do the survey yourself. It takes about 15 minutes. Then you'll get a feel for what's involved, and then you might get the whole committee to do it around the table, because a lot of our community clubs know there's something not quite right at their club, but it's hard to fix something if you do not know what is broken. And this is a really important step to that. So again, we'll talk about volunteerism. Post-COVID, volunteers have changed. It's actually dropped. So the average volunteer was 3.1 pre-COVID. It's now 2.1 years. The model moving forward needs to be more people doing less. The past, it was not as many people doing more. So the whole model of the next generation coming through, it needs to be a sort of a shift in that regard. So how to build capacity and capability. We're going to talk to you about, and I want to give you some live examples of structures. And I just want to talk about this one little point on the bottom of this slide here. A lot of people think you need to be on a board or a committee to help. That's bollocks. A lot of people don't necessarily want to be on a board or committee, but it does not mean they cannot help. And that's often a missed opportunity for community clubs. So most of our community clubs have this sort of structure: president, secretary, treasurer, vice president. The rest is general committee. That's out of date. That's 50 years old. The world's got to change. I'm a big believer. Generally, if you're on a board or committee, you have a role. We have lots of people go on boards and committees who do not have a specific role. and again, who's doing the X, who's doing the Y. So what you see in front of you is how 90% of clubs across Australia structure up their organisation. So just a little bit, my background is 20 years of professional sport, but lifelong in community. And this is the key. We can give you terrific initiatives of how to grow your money, get more grants, get new systems, new volunteers, but this is the magic wand right in front of you right now. Until you get your structure sorted, everything is hard. So we promote a 3-tiered structure. The first level are the executive, the decision makers. The second level is people who sit on a committee who have a role. And then the third level, which is the green, are people who can contribute, who got no idea, no thoughts about going on a committee. What we do find is that some committees might have 10, 15 or 20 on them and everyone has an equal say. That is a nightmare to manage, and the bureaucracy kills the politics, splits clubs apart when you've got that many people making decisions on how the club should be organised. Now, that's not everyone's cup of tea, but I've seen it thousands of times. I've been doing this a long time. When you've got 20 people all trying to vote on the same thing, it's a challenge. That's why you have the decision makers. So this is a general model that we propose. It's general. It's not the gospel by any stretch. But the blue being the decision makers. So 5 or 6 people are the key execs who run the club, who make the key decisions on how the club should be run. The black boxes are people who have a role, who sit on the committee itself. And the green boxes are people who can support the club, who don't necessarily want to go to committee meetings and don't want to do all that sort of stuff. What we normally find, if I had to give you, most clubs are one president and one head coach away from a good club or volunteer coordinator or bowls coordinator from a good club becoming a not so good club. You put the wrong people in those key positions, things can turn sour really quickly. For me, the most important role outside of the president is the volunteer coordinator. Who is your person, the glass half full person who's got good relations, well respected, well regarded, knows the club, who is the asker. This person is not the doer. And again, I'll say this in the nicest, respectful way without offending anyone. I probably will offend someone, but I'll have a go anyway. Most clubs have got a couple of people who can rub people up the wrong way. That is not your volunteer coordinator. Because as soon as they see that person, no, not going anywhere near that. So it needs to be someone well-regarded, well-liked, well-respected. And again, what we find with community, this is the norm. Most clubs have a president, they have a secretary, treasury, they don't have a volunteer coordinator. Where they lack the most is down the middle. The person wearing the blue hats are trying to do the black hats and the green hats at the same time. So it's basically, okay, who can do grants? Who's going to do new membership? Who's going to do sponsorship? Who's going to do the Australian Sports Foundation? Hands up in this room if you're registered with the Australian Sports Foundation. Every single club in Australia should be registered with the Australian Sports Foundation. It's one of the best kept secrets. Go onto our platform that you'll get access to as soon as you leave this room. You can go onto our platform. But it's set up for the benefit of community sport to allow tax-deductible donations for people who want to support your organisation. And there's different options through sponsorship, which we'll touch on. It's a bit to take in, I get that. So, but again, typically the secretary or treasurer, they're trying to do grants, they're trying to do membership, they're trying to do sponsorship, they're trying to do everything. That's where it breaks down. So we've got, again, this is more of a bigger club. If you go onto the resources hub that you'll have access to, fully funded through Bowls Australia, there's different examples of small, medium and large size clubs. A lot of people often say to us, oh, that's great, Terry, in theory to have that structure, but have a guess what? We don't have the people to fill them. That's where this over 55s, I'm going to touch on the over 55s funding, and someone could be doing, you might be outsourcing, you might have a couple of people paid on their bar. You might have someone who's a part-time administrator volunteer who could be fully funded, $17,000 a year per person to work 30 hours a fortnight for your community club. Now, I'll be upfront, there's some red tape in getting through that, but once you're through, you're through. It takes about 8 weeks to get through. And there's a few steps to get through. So this is a couple of examples of a club that we work with. Same principles, but it's a bigger club. Just blow this out. So everyone will we'll share these slides for anyone who wants a copy of the slides at the end of the session. But if I had to give you one tip today, and forget about anything else I'm going to say in the next whatever time, the most important part of running your organisation is to have a visual, visual structure. Visual structure. What normally happens, people see how hard 3 or 4 people are working and they go, gee, I've got to be careful here. If I get too close, I could end up in a big black hole I can't get out of. You might go up to someone and say, look, green box, don't need to be on the committee. Could you oversee our grants? You don't need to come to committee meetings. And by having a visual structure like this, they then see their one piece of a bigger puzzle. Not going to get sucked into that black hole that really deters people who sees, most clubs in this room would have 2 or 3 people who do 90% of the work. That's the norm. So again, here's another example of West Pymbles. They same philosophy, bigger club. The executive are the blue. Black boxes are the people who sit on the boards and have a role, and then the volunteers. But for some reason, clubs don't promote their structure. They don't make it visual. Put it up on your website. Put it out on your newsletters, and this is promote it. And you might have 8 gaps in this structure. But it's not where you start, it's where you finish. I've been doing this a long time. We can give you, as I said 5 minutes ago, if you go into our resources hub, there'll be 5 or so revenue initiatives that could make you 50 to 100 grand. I say that hand on heart. A lot of our clubs are spending 100 hours raising $1,000 on raffles and chocolates and quiz nights and sausages, all this sort of stuff. There's a far easier way to raise money, and we're going to go through one live example today of a club we visited last night that adopted this one initiative that's making $25,000, and it's literally the simplest $25,000 you will ever make, and we're going to go through that as part of this session. So again, West Pymbles is, that's their version. So what I showed you 2 slides back, it's just literally a guide. There's no right or wrong answer here. But what I can emphasize is that having a structure because when people take on a role, they want to know what they're walking into. They want to know, okay, am I getting in here? I'm going to get boom, 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 boom. It's going to expand and all of a sudden that black hole gets a little bit bigger. So keep that in the back of your mind. So structure tips. Get a whiteboard, use that structure. What do you think we need? Do we need someone to do our social media? Do we need to do someone to do our apparel? Do we need someone to do grants? If we're not tapping into the Australian Sports Foundation, do we have someone who does the ASF? As an example. We've got position descriptions in the Resources Hub. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's all there for you, all on one page. I really encourage clubs to apply the 3 levels. That sometimes can impact on various constitutions that clubs have. Most constitutions usually list the executive. The general committee don't normally have any constitutional challenges as such. So, and again, that's sort of keep that in mind. So we're going to talk about volunteering. People, it's great to have the structure in theory. Okay, how do we fill it out? How do we fill the gaps? Normally, what happens, that volunteer coordinator I talked about earlier. Most people, usually, if they take on a role and they ask a couple of people to do something, they get a few no's. You know what happens? Bugger it, I'll do it myself. Because I know I'll do it properly. And the cycle doesn't change. That problematic cycle, and that results in burnout. So obviously volunteering is, so the 4 steps. The challenge, it's about asking the right people. The last thing you want to do is turn up to an annual general meeting not knowing who's going to fill certain roles, and someone ends up in a role they shouldn't be in. Old mate's down the back end of the room, he's at the AGM, and all of a sudden he ends up being the treasurer. It's really, so step number 1, hopefully if you're at a club, you can identify the various skill sets and having that visual structure. Number 2, promote your structure, the visual structure. If you're recruiting people to come on your committee to do grants or sponsorship or committee or governance or finance, 9 out of 10 people who run community clubs Australia-wide are not taught this stuff. Congratulations, you're now in charge of sponsorship. I've never done sponsorship. Congratulations, you're in charge of grants. I've never done grants. So every module in our platform that you get access to, you can share with your volunteers. So if you're the new grants person, watch the grant 20-minute module. If you've got the sponsorship person, watch the sponsorship area. If you're looking at a bequesting or gifting or Australian Sports Foundation opportunity, watch that in the Resources Hub. The great thing about these sessions, often we get a little bit of a spark of energy, but how do you maintain the energy when you leave here? So you've got that 12-month access. Now, and educate, I just talked about the government funding. I want to talk about the over 55s and then the so forth. So we're going to talk about the over 55s. Is anyone in this room tapping in the over 55s funding? No? Okay. Well, we'll play this video, so hopefully you can hear it. So just to be clear, this is it's work for the dole. It's for people that are not on any sort of pension at all, so legitimately applies for people between the age of 55 and 67. What we normally find with people that are 55 to 67, they still want a little bit of money ticking over before they hit pension age. Why can't they work 30 hours for your club and help with the canteen, help with the meals, or help with the bar, or help writing grants, or help with sponsorship, or help with apparel, or help with, you get it. Someone, a lot of our groups that I speak to, pay people to run their various bars, or particularly greenskeepers that are funded. So imagine having an early retiree. So this applies to two types of people: people either out of work or early retirees. So it's a very generous assets test, and the Resources Hub has that. So I'll play the first 30, 40 seconds of this, and you'll get the gist of it.
One of the best kept secrets for community organisations is the opportunity to have paid volunteers. People over the age of 55 who meet all the eligibility criteria can be paid the annual job seeker payment to work for your organisation. This amount depends on your circumstances. You can find more information on Services Australia's website. This funding is ideal for people looking for work or for early retirees. It can be allocated.
I'll stop it there. But if you go into the Resources Hub, that's a really good carrot to get you the Resources Hub, right? So bowls.clubmap.com.au. So I'll quickly walk through it. There's no limit to the number of people you can have on this system. It is 17,800 a year. It's assets tested, and 85% of the population qualifies for it, and we'll touch on that. People often say to me, this sounds too good to be true. The logic behind the science is this: when you turn 55, your chances of getting a job get a little bit harder year on year. So rather than losing those people to the workplace, they can volunteer for their school, their charity, their not-for-profit organisation, or an incorporated association like you are. So again, here's the assets test on the right-hand side. So it excludes your principal place of residence from an assets test, being your home. It excludes your superannuation. You can have $450,000 of assets outside of your home and your super. So that's like an investment property or shares. It's the equity in the property, not the value of the property. You can still earn a little bit of money up to 30 grand, but it sort of staggers in and staggers out in terms of the 17,800, but you can still earn a little bit of money on top of that, because 17,800 is probably not going to be enough to keep people going, particularly that era. So just to be clear, you can't be on any form of pension at the current time, an age pension or a disability pension. So legitimately applies to people that are either out of work or early retirees who pass the asset test, right? And there are some spouse considerations as well. So it's a bit to it. We've put that on the Resources Hub. I'm just about to download it as a 2-page step-by-step that you need to complete. But my local club, I'm in Country Victoria, we have 4 people. 3 people who run our canteen every weekend. We also have a person who sells sponsorship that raises 50 grand a year for us, fully funded by the federal government. No brainer. The great thing about, unlike volunteers, when you're at a club and you've got a volunteer and they put their hand up to do a role, if they don't do the role, you can't bring out a big stick and whack them too hard, can you? Because they're volunteer. But if they're actually technically on the payroll, there's a bit more accountability, yeah? So keep that in the back of your mind. Just recognition. clubs are not great at recognising their volunteers and celebrating people who come onto your committee, or someone as your new social media person, or you've got a new they often promote the talented bowlers, probably, do they, in the social media? But let's celebrate our committee and recognise them accordingly. For me, this topic now is a massive gap in the bowls clubs that I speak to. So we're going to talk about membership. So you'll see here, on the left-hand side is the people who participate, your bowlers, and then you've probably got some social members. But what we find is a lot of people come and go from community clubs. They move out of the area, they've grown, whatever their circumstances have changed. But once they leave the area, there's minimal to no contact made with those people. So why can't they be members? Connecting via a newsletter. So a lot of these people, this club meant a lot to them. They've happened, their circumstances have changed. And again, for me, if I could, again, my second tip for today, the sustainability, longevity of clubs, and I speak to 5, 6, 7 clubs a week, the concern of their declining membership. That comes down to structure. Who's overseeing your membership and registrations? Do you have anyone proactively driving membership? And there's 3 pieces of the puzzle. So most clubs have got number 1 sorted. The people that are currently playing and participating, and might have some parents involved, the kids are playing. But number 2 and number 3 is the biggest missed opportunity in clubland. It is the most fun night of the year. So this is a committee here in the middle, number 2. They ring people that used to be involved with the club that have left the area, and would you buy a $50 membership? If you're not coming back to the club, we can actually get you a tax deduction for that. That's another discussion, right? And then for some reason, the people who participate, they've got their own friends and families and people they can ring, and so this group here got on the phones. If you're going to run a membership program, it's not just about sending out an email, will you be a member? But you have 2 or 3 options. It might start at $30, $50, $100. Small fish taste sweet. My little club in country Victoria is a club called Coral Inn. Has anyone ever heard of it? It's a population of 50 people. No town, no population. We have 350 financial members that don't play because we ask. We've got a simple membership. If you're going to run a membership program, membership program, you just can't take their money. You've got to communicate with them. Hopefully, most of your clubs have a newsletter, whether it's monthly or bi-monthly. People, as I said earlier, a lot of people come and go from community clubs, and once they leave, often the database drops off and their contact drops off. But some of these people are happy to give you the $50. I still want to hear about the club. And again, my local club, we'd have about a third. A third in people that are around the club. Number 2 is a third of the people that left the club. It's really about connection of the past. Your current membership is about today, but clubs are losing their connection with the past. So just keep that as an option. So I talked about the newsletter. If you're going to run a membership drive, I've got no doubt if you've got 50 members and you can get them in a room for an hour and you have a Good Friday appeal and you make a sale and you ring the bell and you create a terrific fun night. My local club this year, these people aren't coming to watch us. We sold 108 memberships in an hour and 15 minutes and we made $14,000. That's a lot of hot dogs. That's a lot of sausage rolls. That's a lot of party pies. For some reason, a lot of our clubs are not growing their membership, not registrations, participation. Your community, that's the gap. But if you're going to do this properly, you need to remember we talked about structure earlier? Find 1 or 2 people on your club who don't want to go on a committee, but they're happy to follow up former members. We're going to target 100 new members this year and an average of $75, $50, $20, $100. $200, whatever it might be. You'd be amazed. Some people, you You just have to ask them. And it's got to be personable. So the communication is really, really important. So I'm going to hand over to Brett. So Brett's going to talk about some initiatives from his perspective, and we'll go from there. I'll finish off.
Thanks, TD. For those that don't know me, my name's Brett Hughes. I'm the club support manager and head of club support for Bowls Australia. I work with Jason Pinnock in New South Wales, so I pretty much cover from the Central Coast down to the South Coast, down to Jindabyne. So 192 clubs wide. Jason's got the rest of them, about 260. So we cover off a fair area, and we work in collaboration with each other. So just because he's got that area doesn't mean that I don't help clubs there. We try to work together using our partners like Club Map to be able to get to so many clubs. What I wanted to do was just share a couple of experiences of some of the clubs that have taken on a BA program and have been able to increase participation or membership. So Jack Attack's one of the programs that we work with clubs with. And a couple of the clubs, the first one I wanted to highlight was Pennant Hills. So they introduced the Jack Attack competition, which is a different format of the game. And I know there's a few clubs here that have got that on board, which is absolutely great. Basically what they done, they had a mixture of experienced bowlers and new bowlers, got them into a 4-week program. The format's 2 sets of 5 ends with a power play. What they did, so they've basically been able to get roughly around 30 players that were new, that had come through the program. And from that, 10 participants from the initial competition become full bowling members, including the 27 and 32-year-old. And they're now playing pennants over at Pennant Hills. Now, they have got a really good driver there in Ian Moyes, and he does a lot with the school competition, does a lot with the Jack Attack. But it just shows if you've got somebody engaged who might not have a position on a committee, but just enthusiastic about it. Ian's actually been able to, talking to him today, 16 new members they've got in the past 2 years that have come through a shorter format of the game, being Jack Attack. So I thought that was a really good success story. Another one that I worked with, and this was quite a few years ago, and they've run it now for 3 consecutive years, was Gymea Bowling Club. So, like, Gymea had a meeting. They formed a committee to look at how they could get more membership into the club. First of all, they seen there was a problem there, so they said, look, we've got an ageing bowling membership. We're still doing very well, but what happens when they go? So they looked at putting the Jack Attack competition on, which they started about 3 years ago. So to attract participants, the Gymea reached out to all the sporting groups. So there was a lot of netball clubs, softball clubs, touch footy organisations that lived around the Gymea area. So they wrote and went and seen all the different sporting groups, and they done an absolutely brilliant job. Their first year, they had 22 teams competing in their Jack Attack comp. The year after, they had 24 teams, and they had to cap it because people had so much fun. And now it just keeps going and it's getting bigger and bigger. So talking to Debbie Brooking and the Barbara Sharkey and the ladies from Gymea, they've had over 15 participants become full bowling members. So they're now playing in their pennants for the men's and ladies. So they've got a really different age bracket there now, and they've got some people coming through, but they're mixing really well with their members and their older demographics. They're fitted really well into the club. So they're 2 clubs, and I know there's other clubs out there that have done this very well, but it's a good way of engaging different sports people that might be looking for that competitive edge to still play a sport, but, looking at that shorter format. To get them into the game, Jack Attack's a really good way. Rookie Rollers, it's one of Bowls Australia's participation programs that we deliver in primary schools. For schools to be able to do it, they're actually funded through the government, through the sporting schools. If they don't get the government funding, they can still run the program. So it normally runs for about 4 weeks. What from there, they can do a teacher-led session or they do a coach-led session. We look for a coach. So any member can become a coach, rookie rollers coach. There's an online module you can do off Bowls Learn. Takes about 20 minutes. Very easy to do. From there, that coach can then engage the PE teacher and the students to hopefully come back to your club and to do some programs at your club. So I know in the Sydney area, I've had a few council-led programs that we've run with different councils and clubs, trying to connect them that way. But there's a club, Old Bar, have done an absolutely brilliant job at incorporating their own program. And I'm quite happy to share the document that they've got in the PowerPoint. Wayne Deere done an absolutely brilliant presentation in the last session. But they've basically gone out and created their own program. So they've basically done the planning of a program. There's a junior bowls development from that program and a junior pathways program. So basically, an overview of it is they were getting, they've now got 100 kids coming in and playing this program on a Friday night. And they've got a pathway from the first day they get there to finishing an 8-week program, which then gets them into a junior program. So they've got like a Dolphins, and then they go to an excellent program. So there's 4 different categories. What they've done is they've got a good group of volunteers and they try not to burn out their volunteers. So they've got a lot of people there that they'll use. They make it fun and interactive for the kids to be able to do. And the biggest thing is there's a pathway to progression. From an affordability point of view, it's 2 hours on a Friday night and it's $10 for a kid to participate in it. And they get a meal and a drink with that as well. If you've got 2 kids, the second child's $5. So they've now got a program, which is they've gone through the rookie rollers, and they're now at the junior dolphin pathway where they're now using the proper lawn bowls. So they've got 15 kids between the ages 7 and 15 that are in this squad that are now actually playing active bowls and members of the club. It's an absolutely brilliant program, the document they've put together, and Wayne's given that to me and we're happy to share that. We're also going to put it in the Club Map support hub so that clubs can access it. But I really encourage you to have a look at that. It's absolutely brilliant. The last one I wanted to touch on as far as the participation program with Bowls Australia goes is what we call Roll Back the Clock. Now, this initiative isn't necessarily to get people playing bowls, but it's just to get them involved in the club and become part of the community. So a club that's done that really well is a club in the outback, Leeton in the Riverina area. So it's been running now for about 18 months in Leeton, and they've had a lot of success. They're in a partnership with Leeton Physiotherapy Clinic. So they align the health and the professional host of the session, which aims to increase mental and physical health. So they'll get, you can register for the program. It's very affordable for a person to come and do it. It works out about $8 a session. They go in there, they get a morning tea, but they've got an instructor there to actually do some physical and health exercises with them, and then they actually get them out onto a bowling green and having a bowl. So they have got a few members out of it. What they've found is they've actually engaged with some of the bowlers there. They may not play bowls, but they go down there and they have a cup of tea and it gives them a bit of meaning and they're part of the community. So it's a really good program to get involved with that. But that's a look at a couple of programs that you can do. Grants and funding was another thing that I wanted to talk to you about. So there are quite a few grants around. We update these regularly every couple of weeks on our website at BA. So and also Club Map have helped us out with this. But you go bowls.com.au, grants and funding. It'll have every state there. You just click on your state. It'll tell you what grants are currently available. Also, there's letters of support. So through Bowls New South Wales, if you contact myself or Jason, we'll contact Bowls New South Wales. We'll get a letter of support for you. And there's also an online where you can click a button and it goes directly through Bowls Australia, and we'll give you a letter of support for your grants as well. Two of the better grants that I'll just go here, Terry, and then you can flick back. But there's two grants that I want to bring up, the local sports program and the community building partnership grant. So these two grants are what I've seen have been the most successful grants for bowling clubs in New South Wales. The local sports program, so each local member gets $50,000 in their area, and each club can apply, a sporting group can apply for between $2,000 to $20,000. I think it has capped and it's been changed to $10,000 now. But the things you can apply for your local sports grant are things like new uniforms, your rookie rollers kits, new bowls. If you want to host an event, I know Bowls New South Wales have, state pennants, they have Champion of Champions, the inner zones and things like that may have a fee on it. You can apply to host that and you can get money and funding for that as well. The community building partnership, each local member gets $150,000 for their electorate. It's a minimum of $5,000 that they'll give a club. But you're looking at, for things like that, you're looking at the upgrade of your surfaces. So if you want to change like from a tiffy, from a cooch to a tiffy, if you want to put in a synthetic green, if you want lights around your green, if you want to do your gutters or pathways or anything like that. Also great for shade cloths and scoreboards. And then things inside your club like air conditioner, kitchen, things like that. That's always great to apply for. I've got a number of successful clubs that have applied for this. So we've actually got submissions that clubs have done, and they're more than happy to share with anyone else. So if you think that your club might be interested in one of those grants, please let me know. I've got my business card here, happy to talk to you after it, and more than happy to share those grants and try and direct you in the right way. I'll hand back to you, TD.
Okay, where are we? Obviously, the grant support, Brett just talked about using the support managers for any information to fast track that. We also at Club Map have people who sort of can write grants for community clubs as well. And anyone who lodges a grant, anyone used ChatGPT? Yes. How good? If you just, it will save you a lot of time. So just have a play around with the ChatGPT and you type in your bullet points, create a 1,500 word proposal for me and it'll do it for you. Reduce it by 10%. So if you know someone at your club, then it will help you with your grant writing. It'll fast track any grant applications, which can be timely at times, but keep that in mind. So in your mind. So obviously, we're going to talk about sort of the benefits of improving structure. Having that visual structure is sort of summarising the session now is really, really important because the challenge is that people get caught up in operations and having someone who oversees the high level. Hopefully, you can tap into more volunteers who are funded so they can help you do what you need to do and make the club more attractive to new coming members. Benefits of improving membership options. Social bowlers turn into members, exactly what Brett just talked about. Members turn into volunteers and it increases the engagement accordingly. Benefits of introducing new bowls programs, new demographics, you can grow your membership, a vibrant group with more volunteers. Now, this is the resources hub that Brett talked about, that if anyone's got, just have a play around with this. This is really powerful. And here's the exact stats. We launched this in February. We have 1,480 people who have registered for our program across the country from bowls clubs. 1,222 are using it, 1,220 are using it. The average watch time is 117 minutes. So they might go and watch a webinar on sponsorship or grants or gifting or bequesting. You can watch those 24/7, 365 days a year. So again, bowls.clubmap.com.au. It's powerful. Actually, we'll go through this. This is a bit of a fundraiser, but we'll go through. It's just really beneficial, particularly for new committee members who are taking on roles and they're not really sure what they should be doing in a particular area. I mentioned earlier about a fundraiser, and this is not about fundraising, but this is a live example of a club. I'd have 500 clubs across the country using this. And this makes anywhere between $15,000 and $30,000. There's no event. There's no labour. It's the most user-friendly fundraising event possible. And just have a listen to this lady, and I'll give you a little bit more detail. But if you want to raise 20 or 30 grand for your club, we met with Brett's club, original club last night. They're making 25 grand. They only launched it a few months ago. We'd have 500 clubs, no permits required because it's all under the thresholds and so forth. So just have a listen to this club. They took it to a new level. They're a bigger club, but have a listen to what they did.
We decided to try and go big. We had a little committee that was formed to work on the lotto. After the workshop, we called it the Terry Dillon Committee. And I did a lot of stalking other clubs to see how they ran their lotto. We got on to PayLeader, where it was the direct debit situation where you could sign people up. They could pay up front or they could pay $10 a week. We ended up signing up about 186. So that was fantastic. And we did do a lot of advertising. We texted a lot of people. We started using Tidy HQ. So I sent out emails to everyone. We really, really pushed it. And we netted, so not total income, total net figure, 65,000.
Profit.
65,000.
Yes, that's profit.
Most of our organisations, it's a $5 a week wrap, like a barrel in a draw for 100 tickets, $5 a week, every week of the year. That makes $15,000. So if you want to learn more about that, go into the Resources Hub. There's 2 videos just on the lotto. And we interviewed Brett's former club last night who have rolled it out. And we'll create a little 2-minute video. But if you're looking at a lot of our clubs are spending 100 hours raising $1,000, right? If you put 100 hours into this and you do this properly, you'll make $15,000 to $30,000. That's just one live example of a revenue earner. But if you go into the Resources Hub, you'll pick out another 3 or 4 that'll be equally as beneficial. So this is the Resources Hub. I might just play it so you get a feel for it. It used to have my pretty face on it, but we've changed it to robots, avatars now. So have a listen to, this is the Resources Hub. It's not, oh, wait a minute. I don't think we've got any, there's normally a little video that goes with it, so it might be delayed, just bear with me.
Here's how to access and use the ClubMap Bowls Australia Resources Hub. First, go to bowls.clubmap.com.au. There's a lot of useful information on this page, but for now, let's click on Access Resources Hub to get started. After clicking on the button, fill out the short form to create your account. Once you've entered your details, click Continue to the Resources Hub. Now we are inside the platform. On the left of your screen, you will see the different sections of the Resources Hub. Click any of them to expand the section and see what's inside. Inside each section is a selection of videos and info pages covering different topics and initiatives. For example, the Volunteers section contains videos including Volunteer Recruitment Strategy, 5 Key Steps, and information pages like How to Recruit Volunteers. Inside this information page, you can find useful tips and education, as well as downloadable templates, forms, and examples. In this case, you can download forms relevant to paid volunteer funding by clicking on the download buttons.
That'll give you the gist, yeah? So if you go to bowls.clubmap.com.au, fully free, no cost to anyone. And if you're looking at filling some information and helping your committee members accordingly. Now, we're pretty much finishing now, but does anyone got any questions before we wind it up? All good? Anything else, Brett, from you? Yeah, so I want to thank everyone for normally say tuning in because I know I do these online. I want to thank everyone for being here today. If anyone wants to, that's our information there, info@clubmap.com.au, or my direct email is Terry, T-R-Y, @clubmap.com.au. So if anyone's got any queries, questions, but if you're looking at administratively, improving a few areas in your club, I really encourage you to use the Resources Hub. And if you need a direct phone chat with your committee, I'm happy to do that as well. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Over and out from us, and take care.